If you ever wondered how you could use your superannuation to buy property, it's possible through a self-managed super fund, or also known as an SMSF. There are a few important rules you need to know first. Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today we'll explain how property purchase work inside a self-managed super fund, or an SMSF. It's a powerful tool. It's not for everyone. So what is this transaction? So a self-managed super fund property. So typically people will have what you call commonly referred to as an industry fund, or a fund that was set up when they first started their job, and over time they've accumulated their superannuation savings, and then they may get through life, they've made more contributions through their SGC, they've made additional contributions over time, perhaps they've now got a partner, and they get to a stage where they have sufficient funds in their industry funds where it now makes sense from a return point of view to look at setting up their own self-managed super fund. So hence the name self-managed superannuation fund. The name doesn't necessarily mean that you have to manage it yourself. Of course, many people go and engage experts, financial planners, accountants to look after the assets within the fund, but also the administration. But you can also look at doing this yourself. There's many tools out there that people will educate themselves and actually manage investments within their own fund. That could be even something as simple as setting up a ETF within their fund that they make contributions into, and they're just buying units on a monthly basis. They may have some term deposits in their fund. Then they can get to a little bit more complex. They could invest in other assets, things like rare minerals, gold, silver, artwork. And then you've got things like collectibles, and then you've got property. And that's what I want to talk about today. So residential and commercial property, but more around the residential property. And so how does it work? So, you need to go ahead and establish a self-managed super fund. And again, there is a sort of a minimal threshold for these expenses to make sense. And we'll get to that into a second. But what will happen is the self-managed super fund that you've established, they'll enter into what you called a limited recourse borrowing arrangement, or an LRBA. Now, typically that is set up for that specific purchase of that property, and that property is purely for investment purposes. So you can't live in it, or you can't be renting that property out to, say your son or your daughter or your partner, because that's not at arm's length. And then the rental income and the expenses will flow through that self-managed super fund. And then upon retirement, that property can be sold, or you can continue to collect the yield off that property. And ideally, once you hit retirement, if you're holding on to that property, you've now got an asset that has a very, very small loan on it, or it's debt-free, and you've got that residual cash flow coming in, or you can look to sell it also. And of course, there's different tax considerations to think about under that stage as well. So who's it not suitable for? So, people with sort of who it's suitable for is people with a balance around that 250 rule of thumb. It's not an exact number, but if you've got that in your self-managed super fund between members, maybe between two partners, then you could look to roll that into a new fund, and then have that fund take care of your existing self-managed super fund, plus give you that flexibility to have complete control over all asset investment, how you invest those assets, plus give you access to an arrangement like this, a limited recourse borrowing arrangement, where we can go ahead and leverage the assets within the fund to go ahead, take out some borrowings within the fund to then acquire investment residential property. And so typically you can go up to 70 to 80% LVR against that property. So it allows investors who may have reached or are reaching their borrowing limits in their personal name. They may have a family home. They may have a family home and investment property in their personal name, and perhaps they're reaching their limits, or that's sort of their exposure limits in terms of debt that they want to get to. And they've got this money sitting there in their self-managed super fund or their funds, and they want to put it to better use, so they can roll that in and set up a property within their fund, access the borrowing within the fund. So again, the self-managed super fund lenders are concerned about the serviceability only really within the fund. So it could be the rental income coming off this property we're trying to buy, the current SGC, so that's your 11.5%, 12% contributions you get paid into your superannuation every month or every quarter. Taking those two, less proposed debt, less the expenses running in the funds, which may only be a couple of $1,000s per year, and we deemed is there sufficient serviceability to go ahead with that purchase. It allows you to continue to diversify your investments within your fund. Perhaps if you feel like you're a bit too heavy in, let's say, shares or international Australian shares, and you want to have a bit more exposure to property, this could be an option. But I guess who is it not suitable for? Well, people with low superannuation balances. So you may have a pathway to get into that sort of 200, 250 mark. And if you're nearly there, great. If you're perhaps starting again, you've had to pull money out for, say, medical illness, or you've had a marital breakdown, or you might be quite young, you may have quite low superannuation balances, it's not suitable for you because the cost of the fund will outweigh the benefit of just having in, say, an industry fund. Anyone wanting to use the property within the fund personally, it's a big no-no. It's not available. It's a contravention of the SIS Act, which governs self-managed or governs the superannuation industry. And then finally, people who are not comfortable with a more complex investment structure. So for some people, they just want to be invested in term deposits or something very safe, low risk, low yield. This is probably not something that would be suitable for you. So purchasing through a self-managed fund can be a great strategy. I'd always recommend working closely with your accountant first to get an understanding about yourself. This is very much dependent on you. Before anyone can give you advice, you need to understand where you're at personally and where you want to be in terms of your financial goals. And then if you want to work out that next step after that conversation around what's your borrowing capacity in your fund, reach out to myself, Jeremy, and we can have a chat. Thanks for tuning in. Smart strategies start with smart advice. I'm Jeremy. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.